There are instances in life when the burden seems overwhelming, not because we lack capability or strength, but because we've forgotten the reason behind our efforts. In those times, our bodies ache, our thoughts race, and a voice inside suggests it's fine to halt now. That's precisely when we should take a moment, not to give up, but to recall. Recall why we began, who we are doing this for, and the purpose behind the struggle. We all start with clarity. Reflect on any moment you embarked on something significant. You felt a burst of energy, your chest filled with potential, and you envisioned the outcome, the change, the destination. You saw it vividly, and that vision propelled you forward like gravity. That was your purpose, pure, powerful, and uniquely yours. Over time, that vision dims. Life adds layers of distraction, we grow weary, bored, and disheartened. We compare ourselves to others and focus on the results yet to come, rather than the purpose that set us in motion. When that purpose fades, even the smallest obstacles feel insurmountable. The issue isn't the struggle itself. Struggle is part of the journey. The problem is forgetfulness. When people say, "I can't continue," they often mean, "I don't remember why I should." Purpose gives meaning to the struggle. Without it, pain feels pointless. But with it, pain becomes part of the narrative, the price we willingly pay to become something greater. When you push yourself to keep going, it's not about relentless effort or toxic perseverance, it's about realigning with the reason you started. We think of pushing forward as harsh, as if we're dragging ourselves through the mud against our will. But in truth, it's not a battle against ourselves, it's a commitment to our values. It's standing face to face with our fatigue and saying, "I know you're tired, but this matters more." Not louder, just deeper. Not stronger, just more certain. That's where true resilience lives. It's not in the loud voices telling you to never quit, but in the quiet conviction of purpose. Purpose is patient. It waits for you to return to it. But when you do, it fuels you in ways motivation never could. Motivation is fleeting, like caffeine. It gets you up, but doesn't keep you going. Purpose, on the other hand, is a steady flame. It doesn't shout, it glows. Consider those who inspire us the most, the ones we admire, whose stories we replay in our minds when we need a push. They're not the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who kept going when it was hard. They faced the storm and moved forward, not because they enjoyed the suffering, but because they were anchored to something deeper than comfort, something that mattered. So when you hit that wall, and you will, as we all do, learn to look inward before seeking external answers. It's tempting to search for shortcuts or signs, or for someone to tell you it's okay to give up. But nothing external will ever replace the internal compass of why you began. In that still place, that honest place, you find your resolve again. You remind yourself, "I didn't come this far just to stop here." Force yourself to keep going, not because quitting is shameful, but because continuing is meaningful. The version of you who started this journey believed in something, and that belief deserves the respect of your commitment. You owe it to your past self who dreamed, and your future self who's waiting to stay the course. This doesn't mean never resting. Rest is necessary. Recovery is wise. But there's a difference between rest and retreat, between pause and abandonment. Force, in this context, is not aggression, it's alignment, realignment. It's the gentle but firm decision to step forward again, even when it's just one more step, even when no one is watching, even when the reward feels far away. There will be days when everything in you wants to stop, days when your doubts feel louder than your dreams. But those are not signs to quit, they are signs to remember. Remember that progress was never going to feel easy, that the strength to keep going isn't something you wake up with, it's something you build, step by step, choice by choice. That strength is built fastest when your actions are aligned with your purpose. Your why doesn't need to be grand to be powerful, it just needs to be true. Maybe you're doing it for your family, for the younger version of you who thought they never would, for the people watching you who need an example, or maybe for no one else but you, because you deserve to know what you're capable of. Whatever it is, hold on to it, speak it, write it, carry it with you. Because when everything else fades, when the adrenaline runs dry, when the support thins out, when the excitement is long gone, your why will still be there, waiting to carry you forward, waiting to whisper, "This still matters." So when it's dark and uncertain, and you're tired and tempted to quit, don't just push harder, go deeper. Find your why again, hold it close, and then take the next step. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. That's the kind of force that builds unshakable people. People who don't just chase results, but honor the reason they started. People who keep going not because they have to, but because they know why they must. We live in a world obsessed with motivation. Scroll through social media and you'll find countless quotes, videos, and gurus telling you to get fired up, get hyped, get moving. And for a moment, it works. You feel the spark, you feel invincible. But then the video ends, the quote fades, the crowd goes home, and what are you left with? Just you, the quiet, and the work. That's where most people stop, because they were only running on fuel that was never meant to last. Motivation is like a match. It lights fast, burns hot, and burns out. It's not bad, it's just not dependable. You can't build anything meaningful on it alone. What really moves the needle, what creates consistent, sustainable progress, is discipline. Discipline is the bridge between intention and action. It's the decision to do what matters, especially when you don't feel like it. The most successful, fulfilled, and purpose-driven people aren't the most motivated, they're the most consistent. They've learned that relying on how they feel is a fragile strategy. They don't wait for inspiration, they work according to a deeper internal standard, one that doesn't fluctuate with moods or seasons, one that holds firm even when the excitement is gone. That's discipline. It's not flashy, it doesn't get headlines, but it changes lives. Because every goal, every single one, starts as an intention, a thought, a vision. But intention means nothing without action. We all know people with big dreams and powerful words who never move beyond the planning stage, not because they didn't care, but because they never built the bridge between what they wanted and what they were willing to do every single day to make it happen. That bridge is built one disciplined choice at a time. The truth is, we all have two versions of ourselves, the one that dreams and the one that executes. Most people stay stuck in the gap between those two. They know what they want, they know what they need to do, but they wait for the right moment, the right mood, the right motivation. And while they wait, the days pass, opportunities fade, and confidence shrinks. Because the more you break promises to yourself, the harder it is to believe that next time will be different. Discipline is how you rebuild that trust. It's how you tell yourself the truth through action. When you do the thing you said you'd do, even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unpleasant, you send a message to yourself, I can count on me. That's powerful. That's how belief is built, not through hype, but through habits. Most people get discipline wrong. They think it's about willpower, like some superhuman ability to grind through pain. But discipline isn't about forcing yourself to suffer. It's about creating a system that honors your values. It's about putting structure in place so that when your emotions waver, and they will, you still follow through. Discipline is a form of self-respect. It's saying, this matters enough to me that I'm willing to show up even when I'd rather not. It's waking up early because your dream is louder than your bed. It's saying no to distractions because your purpose deserves your focus. It's showing up to the gym, the meeting, the work, not because it's easy, but because it's aligned. Over time, discipline becomes identity. You stop thinking of it as something you have to do, and it becomes something you are. You become someone who trains every day, someone who sticks to their word, someone who finishes what they start, not because of some external reward, but because of the internal alignment. It feels right, it feels true. That's the paradox of discipline. It starts out as something you force, but it becomes something you crave. Because nothing feels better than knowing you are living in integrity with who you want to be. Every act of discipline is a vote for that version of yourself. Every choice becomes part of the story you're writing. And when you look back, it's not the big moments that define you. It's the quiet, repeated, often unseen acts of discipline that built your legacy. Look at any artist, athlete, entrepreneur, or leader you admire. Behind their success is not just talent or passion, it's rhythm, consistency, and often uncelebrated commitment to the craft. They practiced when no one was watching. They showed up when it felt pointless. They wrote one more page, made one more call, did one more rep, not because they felt like it, but because they decided it mattered. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your systems. Discipline is the system. It's the daily framework that holds your dreams steady when the storms come, and they will. Life is unpredictable, energy fades, circumstances change, but discipline gives you something solid to stand on. And if you mess up, that's fine. Let discipline be the quiet voice that whispers, "Show up." Let it be the routine that keeps you aligned when your feelings want to drift. Let it be the reason you stay the course when others wander. Anyone can be motivated for a day, but it's those who choose discipline again and again who end up building something that lasts. Pain gets a bad reputation. We treat it like the enemy, something to avoid, escape, or silence. But the truth is, pain isn't a signal to stop. It's a sign that something is happening, something is shifting, stretching, growing. Pain is not punishment, it's a process. Every time we feel discomfort, every time we struggle or hurt, it's easy to assume we're doing something wrong, that maybe this path isn't meant for us, that maybe we should turn back. But that's a misunderstanding. Pain is not the sign that you're off course. More often, it's the evidence that you're right where you need to be. Growth never happens in the comfort zone. It never arrives wrapped in ease and convenience. Growth is forged in discomfort, the stretching that breaks us open just enough to make room for something new. Think about a muscle. You go to the gym, lift weights, apply pressure, and then comes the soreness. It hurts, but you know better than to panic. You don't interpret that soreness as a problem. You understand it's part of the growth. Without that micro tear, there's no rebuilding, no strengthening, no development. The pain isn't a sign of weakness, it's a necessary step in becoming stronger. The same principle applies to life. Whether you're building a business, healing from a loss, pursuing a dream, or pushing through personal transformation, there will be pain. Emotional, mental, sometimes even physical. It's part of the price we pay to evolve. And if we misinterpret that pain as a stop sign, we'll never make it to the other side of who we could become. So often, we're told to chase ease, to find balance, to protect our peace. And yes, there's wisdom in rest, recovery, and self-care. But peace is not the absence of pain, it's the ability to remain centered in it. We grow most not when everything is calm and perfect, but when we learn to stand steady in the middle of discomfort. That's when character is built. That's when confidence is earned. Not given, but earned through the trial of pushing through when every part of you wants to give in. The irony is, we often admire people who have gone through hardship, yet we resist hardship in our own lives. We look at those who've overcome adversity, who've turned their pain into purpose, and we think, wow, they're strong. But strength is not something they were born with. It was developed in the fire. They didn't grow despite the pain, they grew because of it. What if, instead of trying to escape pain, we got curious about it? What if we asked what it's trying to teach us? What if, instead of shrinking away, we leaned in? Not to suffer needlessly, but to learn. To listen, to understand what part of us is being asked to grow. Because pain, when we let it, is one of our greatest teachers. It has a way of revealing our values, our blind spots, our deepest fears, and greatest desires. It brings clarity, not all at once, but slowly, painfully, with honesty. Here's the truth. Most people don't quit because they're not talented. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. They quit because the pain gets uncomfortable, because it's hard to keep going when it stops being fun, when the applause dies down, when no one else is cheering, when it's just you, your commitment, and your pain. But those who learn to reframe it, who begin to see pain as part of the process, they're the ones who push through. They're the ones who keep going, not because they enjoy the suffering, but because they've made peace with the idea that growth costs something, and they've decided the result is worth the price. There's something powerful that happens when you embrace this mindset. When you stop asking, how do I avoid pain, and start asking, how can I use this? Pain loses its power to paralyze. It no longer becomes something to fear. It becomes something you can work with. It becomes a signal that you're alive, you're engaged, you're invested. Because numbness isn't strength, it's disengagement. If you feel pain, it means you care. It means you're reaching for something that matters. And when you're reaching for something that matters, you'll inevitably hit resistance. You'll have days when it all feels heavy, when nothing goes right, when progress is slow and the doubts get loud. But in those moments, pain is not asking you to stop. It's asking you to decide. How badly do you want this? How deeply do you believe in the outcome? Are you willing to keep showing up, even when it hurts? Because that's the question pain always asks. Are you serious about this? Your answer isn't in what you say, it's in what you do next. Will you keep going? Will you step forward, even when it's not easy? That's the difference between those who dream and those who do, between those who wish and those who work, between those who start and those who finish. Pain isn't the problem, it's a partner in the process. It travels with us through every meaningful pursuit. And the more we resist it, the more power we give it. But the moment we stop seeing it as a threat and start seeing it as a signpost, we change the relationship. We take the driver's seat back. So when it hurts, and it will, don't panic, don't shut down, don't assume something's wrong. Remind yourself, this is part of it. This is how it works. I'm not broken, I'm building. I'm not failing, I'm forming something new. The discomfort means I'm still in it, still moving, still becoming. That's the mindset of people who finish what they start. They don't just accept pain, they understand it, they use it, they build with it. And over time, that pain gives way to strength, to clarity, to wisdom. Not overnight, but eventually. So if you're in the middle of it right now, if you're tired, frustrated, wondering if it's even worth it, know this: the pain is not here to stop you. It's here to shape you. Let it. Don't run, don't numb. Stay with it, learn from it, grow through it. And when you come out the other side, you won't just have the result, you'll have the resilience. You won't just have the outcome, you'll have earned the identity of someone who didn't quit when it hurt, someone who stayed, someone who became. When people talk about perseverance, they often focus on what to do. Show up, keep going, push harder. And while those actions matter, what matters even more is what you say to yourself while you're doing it. Because the story you tell yourself when it gets hard is the story that determines whether you continue or give up. The voice in your head isn't just commentary, it's the script you live by. And when it's filled with doubt, criticism, or fear, you don't just lose momentum, you lose belief. The most powerful tool you have when facing adversity isn't strategy or skill, it's mindset. It's the internal narrative that frames how you see challenges, how you interpret setbacks, and how you respond when things don't go to plan. You can be doing all the right things externally, checking boxes, making moves, but if your inner dialogue is tearing you down, you're building on unstable ground. We often underestimate the impact of the words we use on ourselves. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. These aren't just thoughts, they're commands. And your brain listens. It adjusts, it adapts. It starts finding reasons to support those beliefs, not because they're true, but because you've repeated them enough to become your own self-fulfilling prophecy. And before long, it's not the challenge that stops you, it's the belief that you're not equipped to face it. But the good news is that the opposite is also true. When your inner dialogue is rooted in clarity and conviction, when it says things like, "This is hard, but I'm capable," or "I don't have all the answers, but I trust myself to figure it out," you give yourself a foundation to keep going. You stop looking for excuses to quit and start finding reasons to persist. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about choosing a mindset that fuels action instead of paralyzing you with doubt. That's not denial, it's mental discipline. Choosing thoughts that serve your growth, not sabotage it. And that choice is always available. Every time you hit a wall, you face a decision, not just about what to do next, but about what story to believe. Is this the end or is it not? It's not about repeating empty affirmations, it's about building an honest, resilient mindset, one that acknowledges fear but doesn't bow to it, one that sees failure as data, not as identity, one that understands the path to anything meaningful includes confusion, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but none of those moments get to define you unless you let them. People often think successful individuals are simply more confident, but confidence isn't a starting point. It's a result, a byproduct of showing up, falling short, learning, and showing up again, over and over. The people who seem unshakable aren't fearless. They've just trained their minds to respond with belief instead of panic. They've taught themselves through action that even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain, they are still in control of their response, and that mindset compounds. Every time you choose belief over doubt, you add another layer of strength to your identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, as someone who doesn't collapse at the first sign of resistance. You build trust with yourself, and that self-trust, that's what carries you when motivation is nowhere to be found. That's what whispers, "keep going," when everything else says stop. Mindset isn't just about being positive, it's about being purposeful. Purposeful in how you frame challenges, purposeful in how you talk to yourself, purposeful in how you interpret adversity. When something hard shows up, and it always will, how do you respond? Do you shrink, do you spiral, or do you lean into it with curiosity and courage? That doesn't mean you won't feel doubt. Of course you will, everyone does. But the presence of doubt doesn't have to mean the absence of progress. It just means you're human. What matters is what you do with it. Do you let it sit in the driver's seat, or do you acknowledge it and keep your hands on the wheel? Your mindset is your internal operating system, and just like any system, it can be upgraded, it can be trained, it can be rewritten. You're not stuck with the first version you developed. You can choose a new story, one rooted in resilience, self-trust, and purpose. You can choose to believe that setbacks are setups, that discomfort is a doorway, that you are more capable than you feel in your hardest moments. The more you practice that kind of thinking, not just in theory but in action, the more natural it becomes. You start to face difficulty not with dread, but with readiness. You start to expect challenges not as problems, but as part of the journey. You stop wasting energy resisting what is and start investing it into becoming who you're meant to be. That's not easy work. It requires intention, awareness, and catching yourself in those moments when the negative narrative shows up and choosing something different, over and over, not perfectly, but consistently. And every time you do, you get a little stronger, a little clearer, a little more rooted in the version of yourself who finishes what they start. So if you're in the middle of the storm, if the doubts are loud and the voice in your head is telling you to give up, pause, breathe, and then ask, is this voice helping me or hurting me? Is it calling me forward or pulling me down? And if it's the latter, choose a different story. Speak to yourself like someone you're responsible for, like someone who matters, because you do. The mindset you build in struggle becomes the identity you carry in success. So build one that's worthy of the journey, one that keeps you grounded, focused, and in motion. Because when you force yourself to keep going, it's not just about pushing through the work. It's about leading your mind, your heart, and your choices from a place of belief, not blind optimism, but earned trust in yourself, in your purpose, in your ability to rise again and again. One of the most underestimated principles in personal growth is this. It's not about how fast you move, it's about how long you're willing to stay in the game. In a culture addicted to instant gratification and overnight success stories, we forget the power of staying power, the power of consistency, the power of showing up even when progress is invisible, results are slow, and no one is clapping. We're taught to look for quick wins, to chase momentum, to expect results on demand. But anything meaningful, anything real takes time. Relationships, businesses, careers, healing, mastery. They don't happen in a sprint. They're built brick by brick, step by step, over time. And time by nature is not always exciting. In fact, it's often the opposite. It's mundane, it's repetitive, and that's why most people quit. Not because they're incapable, but because they get bored, because the results don't show up on their timeline, because the rewards don't arrive when they want them to. But progress doesn't live on your schedule. Growth doesn't respond to impatience. It shows up for the people who show up for it, not once, not for a week, but over and over, long after the novelty is worn off. There's a quiet kind of strength in sticking with something long enough to see it through, not because you're constantly inspired, but because you're deeply committed, because you understand that the process is where the magic is, that the work you do in obscurity, the work no one sees, is often the most important work of all. People will tell you to never give up, but the truth is there are things worth walking away from, things that no longer align with who you are or what you value. But what you don't walk away from is yourself. You don't give up on your capacity to grow, to rise, to finish what you started, not because it's easy, but because it matters, because it's part of who you are becoming. Every time you keep going when it would be easier to quit, you're building something bigger than just results. You're building identity. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't flinch at resistance, who doesn't need validation to stay committed, who doesn't require applause to stay in motion. That kind of person is rare, but that kind of person changes things, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. We don't need more people who start strong. We need more people who stay strong, who are willing to endure the plateaus, the pauses, the long stretches where it feels like nothing is changing. Because real transformation doesn't happen in highlight reels. It happens in the long haul, in the days when no one is watching, in the moments when quitting would be easy, but you choose to persist instead. The people who build legacies, the ones we remember, respect, and admire, aren't always the most gifted. They're the most consistent. They were willing to play the long game. They didn't just show up when it was easy. They showed up when it was inconvenient, when it was discouraging, when it was hard to see the point. But they showed up anyway. That's what made the difference. And what they understood, what we all need to understand, is that everything worthwhile requires endurance. You don't reach excellence without repetition. You don't find clarity without confusion. You don't build strength without strain. And you don't get to the breakthrough without walking through the breakdown. So what do you do when progress feels slow? You keep showing up. You keep doing the work. You stop asking, is this working? And start asking, am I working the process? Because the process is what transforms you. The process is what shapes your mindset, your habits, your character. The process is what prepares you for the moment when everything finally clicks. And it will, but only if you're still standing when it does. The finish line belongs to the finishers, not the fastest, not the flashiest, but the ones who refused to walk away, who kept planting seeds even when there was no visible harvest, who trusted that in time, consistency compounds, that small steps done daily will always be big steps done occasionally. Think about nature. A tree doesn't grow in a day. You don't see it expanding, you don't watch it stretch, but give it time. Give it care, give it consistent nourishment, and over the years, it becomes something strong, something rooted, something that lasts. That's you. That's your journey. You're not here to explode and fade. You're here to build and endure. The problem is, we compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. We think we're falling behind because their progress looks louder, shinier, faster. The comparison kills consistency. It pulls your attention away from your lane, makes you question your pace, your path, your progress. But you're not here to run their race, you're here to run yours. And the only way to do that well is to keep showing up, day after day, step after step, trusting that the work you're doing now matters, even if you don't see the full picture yet. Here's the truth. You won't always be motivated. You won't always feel strong. Some days you'll feel exhausted, discouraged, maybe even lost, but that's okay. You don't need to feel your best to keep moving forward. You just need to keep your commitment bigger than your emotions. You need to let your values drive your actions, not your feelings, because your emotions are temporary, your values are not. So when it gets hard, and it will, remind yourself why you started. Remind yourself what you're building, not just the goal at the end, but the person you're becoming along the way. That person is worth fighting for. That version of you, the one who follows through, who leads themselves with integrity, who finishes what they start, is already inside you. You just have to keep showing up until you meet them. Force yourself to keep going, not because the journey is easy, but because the destination is worth it. Not because you'll always feel like it, but because your purpose deserves consistency. Not because you want to be seen, but because you want to be someone you can believe in. Keep going, not for applause, not for perfection, but for progress, for growth, for the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you didn't quit on yourself when it mattered most. You're closer than you think. Just keep walking.